I'll just start with welcome to high-risk facilities and lead service line replacement. This is part of a Cook County TAPS offerings, and we're excited to host this session, providing a glimpse inside replacing lead service lines in child cares and other facilities serving vulnerable populations. And we're excited to have you guys all here joining us today. I'm Ruth Kersey. I'm the project manager for Cook County TAP and the senior project manager for water programs at Elevate, and I'll be your host today. Um, so as I mentioned, GoToWebinar changed its platform, which is why I'm having difficulty understanding who's on or not. And so you may have some screen that looks similar to what I'm showing you here. If you go into the upper right-hand corner, I believe that you should have a little word bubble that has a question mark in it, and you can ask questions there, and I'll check those throughout the presentation to see what questions are being asked. At the bottom, there's other functionalities like raising your hand, etc. So hopefully you see that. It's GoToWebinar doesn't quite have the interface up for me to give you exactly what you're seeing, but hopefully it's similar to that. So you can ask questions there. After the webinar, I'll also send you out a survey so you can provide feedback about the webinar and give us any suggestions that you may have. And if you're interested in continuing education credits, I will be sending you the IEPA ID number to get those credits submitted. So before I move on, let's go ahead and get started with a few introductions. I'll start with Cook County TAP. If this is your first time joining us, just a real quick overview. Cook County TAP is hosting today's webinar, and we're a newish program, so we've been around since about, I'd say that we became sort of publicly acknowledged around October of last year. So we've put on a couple of webinars at this point, but we're here to provide engaging educational resources to Cook County municipalities for lead service line replacement and water affordability initiatives made available primarily through our website, but which is coming. We're right in the middle of developing that, so hopefully I'll be able to put an announcement out soon. And we do things like send out surveys to get feedback from the community, and you may have just received a SRF technical assistance survey. Please go ahead and answer that, because we're really interested in getting the feedback so we can see how we can better assist our communities. So Cook County TAP is administered by Elevate Energy, or Elevate, in partnership with Cook County government, and is funded by the American Rescue Plan Act. So I'm joined today with Bethany Olson. She's the program manager for Lead Care Cook County, and she's helped over 23 child care facilities. It's probably more now since I even wrote that sentence, but 23 child care facilities in Cook County to replace their lead service lines in child cares. And then she will present on how your community can benefit from the $15 million of ARPA funding that's provided in partnership with Cook County's Bureau of Economic Development. And then Bethany is joined by Corey Winland. He's the program and project manager for CDM Smith, currently working with the City of Chicago Department of Water Management on the lead service line replacement programs, including the Daycares lead service line replacement project. And then we'll have a panel discussion on lessons learned replacing lead service lines, and we will add in Maria Akendo, who is also here online today, and she's from the Chicago's Department of Water Management, and she'll help answer some of those questions. Unfortunately, Mike Grillo was not able to join us today. Okay, so I do have a poll that I'm going to try to launch here. And just see who's on the line today. So I'll launch it just for our presenters. You probably won't be able to see this, but if you could just go ahead and let us know who you are out there. Take just a couple seconds here, and then I will share the results with everyone. Awesome. I will end the poll and share the results. So we have mostly public works administrators and a few municipal employees. So welcome everyone. It's just nice to know who is out there. And this is our one poll of the day. So I'm just going to go ahead and close that and keep moving here. So just a quick overview of what will be presented here today. We'll talk about lead care Cook County. We hope that you can understand, take from that how to take advantage of this resource. And then, as I mentioned, Corey will present on the City of Chicago's program, and we're hoping that you identify best practices for engagement and execution of lead service line replacement programs for child cares. And then during the panelist discussion, we really want you to be able to think about priority actions based on real world experiences. And then, of course, we will have that Q&A. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start with the lead care Cook County. I have to provide Bethany with the ability to present, so just bear with us. Just one more thing, we will not be taking any formal breaks, but if you need to during these transition periods, you can take a little break. So there you go. Bethany, take it away.
All right. You should all be seeing my first slide here, Lead Care Cook County program goals, all that. All right. Great. Well, first of all, good afternoon. So glad you're all here. Like Ruth said, I'm Bethany Olson. I'm program manager at Elevate. I focus exclusively on the Lead Care Cook County lead service line replacement program. And so I'm just going to talk to you for a few minutes today. First, to explain our program, how it works, what's included, and then also talk through some of the benefits of collaborating and partnering with us. So, okay. I'm also still getting used to the changes to GoToWebinar, so there might be a little learning curve here. So first, just a program overview. Lead Care Cook County, we operate exclusively in suburban Cook County, and we are doing free lead service line identification and replacement for licensed child cares in suburban Cook County. Like Ruth mentioned, similar to Cook County TAP, this is in partnership with Cook County government and is funded by the American Rescue Plan Act. So our goal, we want to replace 550 lead or galvanized service lines or more by the end of 2026. And we are focusing on high-risk facilities, and for the most part, that is going to be home or center-based child cares. Again, in suburban Cook County, for the most part, so far we've done replacements at home-based facilities, but we have had some center-based providers enroll. And did also just want to highlight as well that we know that lead service lines are most prevalent in historically excluded communities, and we know that children, especially under the age of 6, are not only most susceptible to the damaging effects of lead, so we really want to get lead out of their drinking water, but we do also know that there's disproportionate impacts of lead poisoning along racial and ethnic lines. So just want to highlight the equity component of lead service line replacement for child cares. And then just to talk a little bit about program eligibility again, so it's suburban Cook County, home, group, or center-based providers are all welcome to enroll, all eligible. At this point, we are requiring any providers who sign up to be licensed through DCFS. And then I don't know if any questions are coming in. Maybe you can let me know, Ruth, but I'm going to keep going through just at this
No
point.
questions so far. Keep going.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, it just occurred to me that I'm just kind of barreling through. And then just a little bit more about what all is included in the program. We have a range of services that are included, from the marketing and education to intake of enrollments. We also do the visual inspection of the service line and hydrovacing as needed for identification. We do the full lead service line replacement, so the whole entire line from the main to the home. We also cover all of the plumber procurement and construction oversight. We do also include post-replacement restoration, both inside and outside of the home. We know that can kind of vary what might be needed after a replacement, but that's all included in the program. After a replacement, we'll also do interior flushing of the lines. We do lead and water testing afterwards, both to make sure that lead levels have come down and also to help providers meet their DCFS requirements for testing after a replacement. We include bottled water while the replacement is happening, water filters and water pitchers with water filters in them. Um, and then for the entire customer journey, we have bilingual customer service and outreach. So we want to make sure that we're including, this is really a holistic program that includes all of these services, and really try to make it a valuable and an easy experience for providers. And then just another look at what that journey through the program is from the perspective of a childcare provider. So after a provider enrolls, we start them out, we inspect the water service line, identify it, procure a plumber, um, uh, organize all of that, cover the cost of everything. We do the restoration afterwards, lead testing to make sure the lead levels will come down, and then ongoing support at every step of the way. So that's what providers experience when they sign up for this program. And now I want to talk about you all on this call. So we would love to collaborate. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the benefits of collaborating with LeadCare Cook County for service line replacement at high-risk facilities in your communities, and also kind of what that might look like. It's a little bit different, we found, in all the communities we're working in. So there's just a couple benefits that I'm going to highlight. There's a lot of them, but one of the top ones, of course, is that it helps meet the state requirements to prioritize lead service line replacement at high-risk facilities. That's something that that all of us are thinking about, that's a requirement, and that it's important. And so that's the main goal of this program, is to be serving high-risk facilities and getting that lead out. So in working together, we can work towards that goal and achieve that faster. It also, we're doing the lead line identification and replacement for free. So that's a cost benefit to the providers and also to communities. It's also a great way to support local childcare providers with mandatory testing and mitigation requirements, and supporting childcare providers overall. And of course, that's all serving to benefit the children and their care, and making sure they have safe and healthy drinking water. And then we also think a great benefit of partnering with LeadCare Cook County as we're doing service line replacement is valuable lessons learned for your own efforts. So I think I mentioned at the top, we're in communities all throughout suburban Cook County, so we're already doing replacements, and we would love to work together to be more efficient and effective at that, and also to be able to share all these great lessons learned that are coming about as a result of the replacements that we're completing. And I'd be remiss if I didn't brag. We've almost done 30 replacements. I think it might have been 30 just as of this morning. So you're right, Ruth. The number 23 was an old number. We've done quite a few more since then, with more on the way. So then some of the opportunities to collaborate, and again, this is just a few of the opportunities. One is promoting the program to providers in your community. We have the DCF list of providers in every community that we're happy to share with you, as a mailing list. There's also a lot of other opportunities. Many communities have newsletters or social media feeds that they use to share information with providers. You may also have upcoming events. We'd love to attend events. We do have a media share kit that we put together that has language for newsletters or website articles or other content. We have letter templates that we wrote up that are designed to be sent from a municipality to providers, whether you've identified that they have lead at their location or whether it's still unknown if they have lead. Social media graphics and sample posts and all kinds of great resources to help get the word out in your communities. Another great opportunity is if you have completed your lead service line inventory and you're able to share that with us. That helps us work together to kind of target providers and come up with a good outreach plan to be able to reach all the providers in your community. And then any other critical information about service line replacement efforts in your community that might be helpful, and that can there's a range there from information about water meters or water main atlas, if there's any unique features with um, water infrastructure in your community, um, anything unique about the permitting process. So all of that information is really helpful. We love to be able to talk about that beforehand and share that information with the contractors that are doing the work in your communities to make sure that we're all on the same page and there's no surprises or confusion. Again, all in pursuit of an efficient and compliant, smooth, and effective replacement process. Um, so those are just a few of the great ways that we've been collaborating with municipalities so far, and we're always open to more ideas. And to that end, I'm going to put this link in the chat, or perhaps Ruth might. I don't know if I have the ability to, but this is just a link to a Microsoft form that's just got just going to ask for the municipality you work for and name and contact information. We'll take it from here. We'll reach out to you and find a time to talk, because we would love to see what opportunities there might be to work together in your community. I always say that I'd love to replace every single service line in every single community, and we know that working together with you all is going to be one of the ways that we're going to be able to achieve that. We have been doing marketing. Providers have received a couple of different marketing touches at this point, but we know that hearing from you and hearing from trusted messengers really helps a lot. And so that's what we're hoping to do more of. And I think I
Awesome.
have one. Oh, sorry. Yeah, my last slide here. I forgot about this
Okay.
one. It's just a testimonial from one of the first providers whose replacements we completed several months ago, Emma, and she was so kind to let us take pictures and do a video testimonial. The full testimonial's on our website, but it's always helpful for us to remember what the real life impact is for the providers we serve. So I think that's the end of my slides. My contact information is here. And I look forward to talking to more of you. And you'll hear from me again during the panel part.
Perfect. So just so everyone knows, I do have, if you go to your materials, there should be a little something at the top on the top right corner of your screen that says materials. And I do have the Lead Care Cook County flyer there if you want to download that. And then Bethany, I'll make sure everyone gets that link that you provided either before the end of this session or in follow-up information. So just so everybody knows that. And so now we're going to shoot it over. I see people's questions. Thank you so much. There's a number of questions for lead care, but we're going to save that for the panel if that's all right with everyone. I will get to those questions, but I'm going to send it over to Corey right now, and I will make you a presenter, Corey. And there you go. You should be able to put your presentation up.
Sounds good. Get that up here. Okay, how about that?
Perfect. Take it away.
Good to go. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm Corey Winland with CDM Smith, and so we help out the city of Chicago with their lead service line replacements programs. In particular, talking through the Daycares program that has been going on for a couple of years now. And as Ruth was mentioning, we also have Maria Oquendo on the call as well. That's going to help out with the Q&A section of it, and she is Assistant Commissioner over LSLR efforts with the Department of Water Management in the city. So let's get into it. Okay, so here's high-level agenda here. Given time here, I'll probably skip through the first one a little bit quicker, just giving an overview of kind of what the Department of Water Management for the city is doing for lead service replacement, just given there's a lot of angles there and some of them could be useful for some of you guys to kind of just see over holistic kind of like lead service efforts. But I'm gonna spend most of the time in the second section as we're looking at the Daycares program that the city has implemented here. So getting into it. So as many of you possibly know, the city of Chicago has a lot of lead service lines, a lot of factors to that. Lead services were installed for a very long time. There's a lot of homes and properties in the city, just given the size of it. A lot of the single families and two flats are gonna be lead service in the city, just given the nature of that past history there, unless it's been completely kind of gutted in the last 20, 30 years. A lot of those are just going to be lead service. So a lot of lead services, over 400,000 confirmed or suspected. And then with it, the split, just kind of for reference, because this will be brought up later in it, but the city kind of owns from the water main into what's called the B box there, and then the property owner owns all the way up into the house, into the shutoff valve / meter, so up into the house. Sometimes the meter can be out here, but ultimately homeowner owns all the way in through the house. And then efforts for replacing lead services started in Chicago in late 2021. There was no mandate to do it. They just wanted to get ahead of things, and has now since expanded to 6 different programs, which I'll give an overview here and just on the next slide. But ultimately, the focus for these efforts, and especially at the beginning, has been an equitable focus of trying to replace lead services in those disadvantaged communities that Bethany was talking about, that there's just a higher percentage of that. So making sure the focus of initial programs is on those communities. And so a quick rundown of kind of what's going on the Chicago front. There's kind of 2 buckets we got. We have the voluntary side of things. So these are the programs that the city's implemented to get people's lead service out there and not necessarily required. These people are voluntarily signing up for it. We have homeowner initiated, which is basically anyone in the city, if they want to replace their lead service, the city will waive those fees for them. And then we also, the next one, the big one that kind of rolled out, the first big program the city had was then the equity program. This is focused on low-income homeowners based off the funding source for it. It can't be renters, so it's just homeowners. But any low-income homeowners that qualify do get a free lead service replaced, and there's been doing about 600 per year starting in 2021. The next one is the Daycares program. Again, I'll get into the weeds on that one here in just 1 minute, but that kicked off in 2022, doing about 100 or so a year. And the fourth one on the voluntary front is block level replacements. So as we get into the new year and some new funding sources, focus on full block level replacements in low income neighborhoods. And so that'll be a little bit TBD for goals based off just the funding that kind of gets laid out, but that's looking to get rolled out later this year as a new program. And then the other bucket we have is kind of on the mandatory front. So basically from the state regulations that are required of what, if you touch lead, kind of you have to replace at that angle. So you have the leaks and breaks, which I imagine many municipalities here, you guys deal with this as well, of if you touch a lead service, got to replace it in terms of repairing it. The city's got a lot of those, so in the thousands per year. That kicked off in 2022. For the state's requirement, the city had to initiate that in 2023. So that kicked out ahead of time just to kind of get rolling on that. And the last bucket here is replacements along capital projects, so water main, sewer main. So for every water main they do, you're going to cut into that lead service. You need to replace that. So that's for those. And then for sewer main, a lot of times you are also cutting into lead services as well when you're on that block. So based off of the sewer alignment relative to the water main and the services, cutting into those. So those are also another category that the department's been working on over the last few years. Again, this also started at the same time as leaks and breaks in Q1 of 2023 by the state regulations. So all in all, over 4,000 lead services have been replaced by the city of Chicago through these different programs. So a lot of work has been done, but a lot of work will be occurring in the coming years too. This number is definitely going to be growing exponentially as things start growing in the next couple of years as more regulations come out and funding becomes available. Okay, so with that, diving into the weeds on the Daycares program. So going to talk through a few different facets of it, kind of from the start to the finish, just to kind of give us bits and pieces of along the way, just kind of insight of kind of how this program has started and to where it's at now and to how kind of construction looks, because I feel like some of these angles could be helpful for different people based off kind of what you're looking at here. So on the background front, there is a lot of daycares in the city of Chicago, over 2,000 of them. So what Chicago has focused on, Department of Water Management has focused on those licensed daycares, both center and in-home ones. And then planning started in 2021. I was talking about construction started in late 2022 for the actual replacements. And a big piece of this program has been kind of the holistic effort on working with Elevate. So not only are we going out and replacing that lead service from the water main all the way through into house, but then also we're working with Elevate for them to come back after the fact, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but come out after the fact and do testing and follow-up inspections to see if there's any lead in their pipes, and maybe if they need some internal fixes as well, because that's obviously a big piece of it is taking the lead service out, but they could also have some lead internal plumbing as well that could contribute to high lead test results. So that's been a big piece of that that's been super helpful in kind of giving these daycares and high-risk facilities a holistic solution to getting lead out of their water. And the last piece of this is just setting up the program to be successful is a big piece of significant amount of data. There's just a lot of pieces to it, especially if you're looking at hundreds of replacements into thousands. There's just a lot of data that goes into it. So that's just been a big piece of it that we'll hit on throughout here. Okay, this one I'll probably go pretty quickly on. Funding, every municipality is going to be different, but ultimately you can't actually replace it if you don't have the money to do it. This is obviously a challenge as a lot of municipalities are looking for funding to replace lead services, especially even in daycares. Everyone's fighting for a lot of money. Let's just say that. That's obviously true. There's obviously impacts for private and public side. So looking at funding sources of, okay, to pay for the private side, what funds can be used on that kind of stuff. That makes it a little complicated. Then you also have a ton of different options here of the bill, SRF money, CDBG, WIN, WIFIA, a lot of different acronyms coming out of the federal government. But ultimately, yeah, this is all kind of contingent on what program you got going on, what you qualify for. But this is a big piece to it before you even get into replacing it, just making sure the funding's lined up, which is obviously a big endeavor for the city of Chicago with so many lead services to replace, is really finding that funding. And so moving into prioritization. So we got over 2,000 licensed daycares in the city of Chicago. Limited funding, need to make sure we go and prioritize where to spend that money at. So put into 3 different buckets. The first is priority communities, focus on specific communities in Chicago on the equity focus. So Austin, North Lawndale, and Inglewood. And then added in Roseland and Chatham when we had additional daycares, need for additional daycares in the backlog. And then the second is obviously we want to hit certain communities, but then we also wanted to make sure we were going throughout the city. So community safety blocks, identifying specific pockets of the city that may have a little bit higher crime and pulling in the daycares and prioritizing those from those blocks, just so that we can be going throughout the city and not just in certain neighborhoods. And last, but definitely not least, is also any locations that have high lead. So obviously there's a threshold where daycares need to be replacing their lead service lines or mitigating based off a certain threshold. But anything with high lead, we want to be helping get the lead out for those daycares. So anything, test results from Elevate, DFSS, other organizations that we can say, hey, you get high lead, we want to go out there and put those on the top of the list. All in all, we've prioritized over 650 daycares, which have been located in about 75% of Chicago's 77 communities. So hopefully hitting a lot of the city with still focused on the kind of the equity angle here as we get rolling with the daycares program. Okay, and this is honestly, so Bethany touched on this a little bit, and this is probably honestly the most important part of the daycares program for the city of Chicago has been outreach. When we first started all this, we were sitting there and we were like, hey, we have this great program that we want to deploy. It's a free service to all these daycares. And it just took a little bit of effort to really get a lot of daycares to sign up. So I can't stress this one enough of how critical this piece is of having a good outreach strategy to communicate with daycares to get them on board with it. So whether it be different methods, so flyers and materials that are in the languages that the daycare owners will be speaking, in-person visits and having leave behinds like hangers, phone calls, emails, having a website to go back to. A big thing that we've come across is a lot of times it's this free service, right? And you say free a lot, but then ultimately people start to think it's a scam. So having a website they can say, hey, just go check this out, like it's legit kind of thing. So there's a lot of different angles that have gone into the outreach strategy that are critical to kind of get that trust of those daycares to be saying, hey, I do want to sign up. I want to get my lead service line replaced for free. And then a couple other ones, you have like renter owners, a unique situation. So you have daycares that will be renting a property that would still qualify. So making sure coordinating with the property owners as well to make sure they're on board with it, because the property owner is technically the person that owns that service that is going to get replaced, but they still qualify because they are a daycare at that facility at that time. And honestly, the big piece is this last one is I've hit on Elevate a couple times before, but this is probably the biggest one, is that just really getting connected into those trusted networks that kind of Bethany was touching to base on as well, of just connecting as best you can so daycares have those trusted sources. that can go and say, hey, this is a legitimate process. They really do want to just go out and replace your lead service, and getting connected with them and having that message come from another organization, another group that helps kind of spread that. So that's been very critical to our success here, is connecting with those groups that have in that built-in network, and helping kind of spread the message of the replacement. Okay, and so that gets into a kind of two-pronged step that we do for the city of Chicago, and pre-construction into construction. So pre-construction, the whole idea is just to make this as smooth as possible when we get into construction. So everything that we can lay out ahead of time so that day of construction is easy on the daycare is what we're looking for. So signing a right of entry to say, hey, we can enter the property. That's critical, just to make sure we're on the same page that we're allowed on the property. Having a pre-construction meeting with the city and the daycare is then key with the contractor as well, to kind of identify the plan for what's going to occur. And that funnels into the two things that you're seeing here. Property owner agreement, what we call, is basically just say, hey, daycare, this is what we're going to be doing, and this is what you need to do either ahead of time or after the fact, just so, again, there's no unknowns there. There's no gaps there of what's gonna the end product gonna look like, of like, hey, we gotta replace this section of the ground or the floor or whatever it may be, and this is what we're gonna put back. So just make sure everyone's on the same page with that. Especially gets very critical for restoration. We always try to avoid like taking out flowers or iron fences or things along those lines. Sometimes they're unavoidable, so it's just very clear to make sure upfront what the plan is, so that when you get to day of construction, there's no questions or uncertainties there. And then ultimately to also the pre-construction sketch, this other item we got here on the bottom, that is typically, it's more for the city and the contractor, just saying, hey, this is a very specific plan, but it does help the daycare as well, of this is what they would expect for like where the new service is coming in at, where their meter is going to be, how we're going to install too. So I was touching base of trying not to get rid of flowers, not get rid of iron fences, and you can do that through trenchless operation. So identifying where you can do trenchless operations versus like open cut operations is critical when you're doing these sketches ahead of time. And all of that gets into the actual day of construction. So the hope is that, again, as we get to day of construction, it's as smooth as possible because you did that upfront work. Communicating with the owner or with the daycare owner to identify a day that works for them. We try to go in and out in a day, preferably definitely less than a day. We want to minimize that disruption as much as possible, especially water disruption. So if we can get in and out in, say, 5 or 6 hours, that is obviously optimal. Sometimes it's just not going to happen that fast, just given the nature of what you're working with that day. But try to get in and out as fast as possible. What I was talking about a second ago in terms of methodology, so utilizing open cut versus trenchless, there's benefits to each one of those, and all the trenchless even has specific technologies under that. So trying to, again, identify that ahead of time, so when you're day of, it's okay, we get on site, we do, say, horizontal directional drilling. We're going to go in there, the equipment's going to be set up here, and it just go on the day of construction. So there's no kind of like laying out a plan when we get there. And then during construction, kind of the typical operations look like we're installing a new copper service all the way through, looking at installing a new meter as well, plus if there's interior copper to connect into the old connection point, that would get installed too. And then we're turning in a later date for some restoration. So if you tore out concrete, asphalt, typically what we do just do for the soil area is just backfill with topsoil and then hydroseed. And again, that's why we try to want to avoid flowers, want to avoid trees, is because don't want to make it as much as like a restoration and like home renovation contract, and really want to focus our efforts on replacing lead services. Okay, and that gets us then to post-construction. So restoration I was just talking about, and then providing flushing, flyers, and filters for a few months after replacement so that they can get all that residual lead out of their system. And the last big piece here is then coordinate with Elevate on their kind of the 4 steps of testing, follow-up site visit, some plumbing work if necessary, and then further evaluations just to make sure there's a holistic solution for those daycares of getting the lead out after all this is said and done, right? And the last thing I got is just kind of overall progress to date. And this is just kind of goes back to the data tracking. There's just so much going on here that it's just critical to kind of set up your foundation from the beginning of how you're tracking data and how you're tracking efforts. And just one thing I'll point out is here on the graph to the left there, you'll see a couple dips. So in the middle is the summer months. You'll see a dip there of that was actually, we had to revisit our outreach strategy. We thought we had a pretty good strategy and we were seeing things ramp up and then kind of dwindle down a little bit. And we had to revisit things. And that was when we really connected with other groups that were able to connect into their in-network abilities to help kind of spread the message. And then we got things ramped back up. So always looking to revise things on the fly to kind of make it as efficient as possible to get people to sign up there. And then the other dip there too is just another interesting point to note is like winter months, things can slow down. So that was actually the month of January there where we just had you guys all know that there was a very cold week that construction shut down for a week. So something like that kind of impact your schedule because you just can't do work for a week in that. We had obviously a very lucky winter this year where very mild, but just that shuts down for a week. And there goes your productivity a little bit there. So, and that's pretty much all I had. Yeah. Obviously, I think there's some questions that are flying in here on there, but I hand it back to you, Ruth.
Awesome. Yes, we do have a bunch of questions. So what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to start with the audience questions because people may have to, go off and but everyone who's going to be on the panel. So yeah, Maria, Bethany, go ahead and turn yourselves on. I believe your video will only show when you're talking. Again, new platform, still getting used to it, but just so you know that may be happening. So let's get to the questions. And Maria, if you want to come on camera, you can, or you can just unmute yourself in case you need to answer some questions. So let's start with Matt's question. Does your group lead care, and I'm going to click on this so I can see the whole thing, have a list of daycare or other high risk facilities in Cook County communities? So do you have a list?
Yeah, that's a great question. So DCFS has what's called the Sunshine List, so that's publicly available. That's the database that we use. So that's we will pull an updated list from that, and we can look at it for all of Cook County, or we can also export it just for a specific municipality. So hopefully that answers your question, but that's what we use for our mailing list. And if we were working together on targeted outreach in your community, that's the list we would start from and go from there.
Great. So, Matt, if you have a follow-up question, just let us know. Um, and then there's another question from Matt. Would a church daycare or after-school care qualify for this program, for the Lead Care Cook County program?
Yeah, that's a great question. From the standpoint of, first I'm going to go geographically, as long as they're in suburban Cook County. That's one criteria met. Next, they at this point they would need to be DCFS licensed, so we would just want to check that in the DCFS database to make sure they're currently licensed. And then the last part is we have had daycare programs that are within churches or larger buildings enroll in the program. Typically, what we've found so far is that the building is large enough that they don't end up having a lead service line. Um, so so for the most part, we've ended up finding lead at home-based providers. But yeah, a church-based daycare is certainly welcome to enroll, and we'll do all the different checks that we need to do to ensure they're eligible, and then move forward to identification.
And I'll just throw that to Corey. Is that true for the City of Chicago's program as well?
Yes, that is true. It's all based off license for DCFS, and also to what Bethany was saying, that's spot on as well. As a lot of times, if it's a bigger church, you're not going to have a lead service. We have definitely replaced a few church-based daycare providers that end up being in a smaller facility that would have a lead service.
Great. And then this question from Joe, I'm not exactly sure who to throw it to. I think it came in during yours, Corey. And they're asking about ages 6 and below and high risk children. Are elementary schools with kindergarten age children being included in the buckets of service at this time? So I'll start with you, Corey, and then maybe Bethany, or you can weigh in.
Yeah, I could take a first crack at that. Yeah, so for the city of Chicago, not currently. It kind of just goes back to the sheer backlog of how many daycares exist in the city of Chicago and the limited funding to pay for all of them. But that is something that is on the table in the future as well of not only elementary schools, but schools in general is definitely a focus. Again, it kind of goes back to the same question of the church one, is a lot of times the schools could not have lead services, which is um, helpful that we don't have to deal with that, but there's obviously smaller schools that could have a lead service as well, but not at, so simply not this time.
Great.
Yeah, from the lead care Cook County standpoint, it's essentially the same answer that Corey just gave. It would need to be they would need to have a DCFS license, and that would be the eligibility part of it. I don't think that we've had any. I can't think off the top of my head that we've had any schools or after school care programs that have enrolled just yet. But again, the same thing for building size would apply.
Great, thank you. So here's a question for you, Corey, and probably Maria. Can you provide the CDM pre-construction sketch and checklist as a resource?
I think that was a question, probably a DWM question. So that is a DWM document that we shared there of what has been developed through DWM, us helping them kind of standardize that template. So I would say that's I would hand that one to Maria. That's more of their document there.
So yes, it is DWM, but we work in conjunction with several other um, city departments. We work with our CDOT department, Department of Transportation. We work with Street and Sanitation. So our documents really are a culmination of what other departments are looking for and required, not just with our contractors, but our in-house crews for several different projects that go on here in the city, not just water. So ours is really structured for the city and what the requirements are here. So it would be something, God bless Google, you could probably find something similar and tailor it to fit, each person's kind of location or service area to determine what exactly is going to be needed.
Okay, so I think the answer is no, but you can find, we are going to share this presentation with everybody so you can take a closer look, and probably if you reach out or do a little bit of research, you might be able to find something similar. Another question, if lead care pays for lead service line replacement for daycares, do they do all work or just reimburse, and how does this work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, um, it's not a reimbursement situation. Blood Care Cook County, um, we're it's our staff who are doing identification. We make the contracts with for hydrovacing or for replacement and for restoration. So that's being paid directly out of program funds. So it's not like a situation where the municipality lets us know later on we replaced service lines at 3 daycares and we reimburse for those costs. I think that's answering the question, but not reimbursement. It's directly paid by the program.
Yes, completely free to the child care provider. So,
Yes, yeah,
um,
no cost to the municipality, no cost to the child care providers. All costs on the
exactly.
program.
So, somebody asked, and I'm not sure that everybody saw the answer, but I did answer this. Will this presentation be available afterwards? Yes, everybody will get a link to the recording, so you'll be able to see it again if you want to watch it or share it with others. Um, and then somebody mentioned, is the software tracking tool Trinix or Trinex? I think that's for you,
It is
Corey,
not.
but it's not.
Yeah, it is not. So the Department of Water Management has a very robust uh, like software systems, so CMIS systems that currently exist. So there's a work order system that they utilize to track all their work orders, and there's other softwares that kind of build off of that as well. The Trinix is not utilized in this project right now. We do utilize it for other projects, but the City of Chicago has their own built-in systems that we utilize for this.
Great, thank you for that. And then somebody's mentioning that they have found some older churches with 3-inch lead lines for their community. So I think that might be in Wilmette. So anyway, I will thank you for all of your questions, everyone. If you didn't get something answered, please go ahead and follow up with another question. And I'll look back at the question thread. But I two things. One, we're going to go to 3 o'clock, maybe a little beyond because we got started late. If people have to roll off right at 3 o'clock, they can. But I have some questions for our panelists, so I'm going to go ahead and forge ahead. So, for let's just go with lead care Cook County again. Bethany, are there any deadlines for being a part of this program? Is there something that we should know about getting in now in order to take advantage of this of lead care Cook County?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So we have funding through the end of fiscal year 2026. And really, I've been thinking about it that we have about the next 2.5 years. The the end of November 2026 is the final cutoff when everything needs to be done. And because we have the post replacement testing and restoration, um, we haven't finalized the exact date that we anticipate doing our last replacements, but I'm envisioning the end of summer 2026. So that's the practical answer to that question. The other benefit to getting in early is you could be the first community in suburban Cook County to replace all lead lines at childcare facilities, and that would be not only a great benefit to the community, but a really cool thing to brag about to your fellow municipality. So just something to think about. You could be the first.
Yeah, be a great example for other communities. That would be awesome. And then for DWM also, are there deadlines? Is there anything that folks that you provide to people to get in soon, or is it just a program that's going to continue going for a long time?
For as much as we would love for it to just continuously evolve, funding is limited. There are, different funding sources that we're trying to generate and get money from in order to be able to provide these services. And they all have different timelines. They all have different requirements. So being able to kind of fulfill those and constantly stay on top, and it's been great working with Corey and CDM, being able to facilitate all the funding sources and all the money requests and applications. Funding is limited. So we really do try to encourage, especially during the outreach, that we can get this done sooner rather than later. And we want people to take advantage of it like right now. And but we understand there are, logistical concerns, operational concerns when it comes to daycares. But bottom line, the sooner they can get it done, the better it's going to be for everyone.
Great. And then I wanted to touch a little bit on, just in terms of the lessons learned here. And for both of the programs, and I guess we'll start with DWM. What is sort of and I don't want to put it negatively, but like a worst case scenario, what is an interesting situation that you found yourself in? So in other words, is every lead service line replacement the same as the next, or what was
No,
your
that
experience?
would just take the complete fun and joy out of it if everything was exactly the same. Every situation, every structure, every property, every homeowner, daycare representative, daycare owner is definitely different. So situations are different. When you do any type of construction, you never know what you're going to find until you start breaking things. So you start breaking ground and seeing what is there. So it's you have to be able to be adaptable and having qualified people there to be able to make things work, and working very closely with the daycare owners, and not just them, because we have the private small home daycares and commercial property daycares. So the daycare owner may not be the owner of the property itself. So now you have multiple different people, situations, things like that. Um, no two replacements, I think, are ever going to be the same.
Right. And I think Bethany would probably agree. And Bethany, just to follow up on this, for municipalities that want to take advantage of lead care, Cook County, is one of the advantages that they get to see what is out there, sort of like a test case for other lead service line replacements down the line?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I would completely echo. Sounds like Maria and Corey, you all have had the same experience that we have, which is that, yeah, every replacement is different, and um, we keep trying to frame it on my team that look how much we're learning. There's things that we wouldn't have expected, and now we know. So sometimes that's, just not knowing, thinking that where the connection to the main is located, and it turns out that was incorrect in the reference documents, or shared service line situation where we just didn't know that in some parts of Cook County there are two homes fed by the same service line. So now we know about that, and we know where we are starting to know where they're more prevalent. So there are other steps we can build in. And I think I'm sure for people who work in public works or with water infrastructure for your municipalities, you probably know a lot of those quirks and unique things already. But I think going through the process, I hope that working in partnership and doing lead service line replacements throughout the community, that can help start to identify some of the other things that you might not already have on your radar, or just at least, I think it's always nicer when when you're approaching something new as a team. So we'd love to work together for a lot of reasons, and that is a great one. I think that will benefit communities.
Awesome. So in addition to, so we have, you both talked about the resources that are available, but just to broaden it out a little bit, why should communities want to move forward with lead service line replacement in high risk facilities now? Like what, and I'm going to throw this to Corey. What are some of the high level reasons why it's good to move forward with these folks first?
Yeah, so I guess there's a couple, right? Like, I mean, from it's a great benefit to the city, right? I mean, and this is kind of so building off of actually what Bethany and Maria were talking about. A lot of times, like this is a lot, you're in a customer's home or property that it's a customer service project almost. And obviously there's an infrastructure project too tied to it, but it's also a big customer service project to it. So these kind of efforts have a real value to the community, which obviously can be really good for that municipality out there. If you're driving these kind of efforts, the public will see that and kind of realize that benefit. So I think that's a big piece to it. I mean, there's also like more on the regulatory side of things of needing to do it, which is a part of this as well. But I think taking it from a positive perspective, I just think like this is an opportunity that is a big endeavor that a lot of municipalities are going to be dealing with over the coming years. And it does have a lot of benefit to the community that is immediately seen sometimes. Whereas like replacing a water main is obviously very critical and is going to save a lot of money for the city and all that kind of stuff. And it's great to do, but like this is like very immediate value that those customers that you're going into their property and replacing that lead service is just a great benefit to it. That I think that's kind of where I've always kind of viewed it from. Yeah. I don't know. I guess yeah, Marie. I don't know if you have other angles there from the city side.
No, I think you nailed it. um, Definitely, everything that we can do is customer service based. We are here, we work for them. We are providing a service to them. And besides the obvious health benefits, um, we are here to try to provide the very best service we possibly can. And to be able to do that free is just wonderful. And we want as many people, as many daycares, everyone to be able to take advantage of that while we can.
I love that. Um, and just to sort of follow up on daycares and relationship with daycares, and I know we have 1 minute left to the presentation, so of course, audience and folks, if you need to jump off, we understand. But one more question here, and I guess I'll start with Bethany. Working with contractors, are there strategies that you use to manage their work when working with child cares or other high risk facilities? Like, how does that coordination work? And how do you, I don't know, I think put child cares at ease because there's a lot of players in here. So how does that work?
Yeah, well, I could talk about this for another half an hour, but I'm going to keep it really brief. I think the first couple of things are making sure that, I mean, kind of going back to Corey, what you had said, that we're keeping in mind, we're centering ahead of the needs of the child care provider, and keeping in mind that for that there's a strong customer service component to it, and also that they're really protective of the children and their care. So a lot of it comes down to communication and expectations. We make super clear to the contractors obviously they know they're going to a child care provider location, but being really clear about what all the health and safety considerations are at every step of the way. Being clear with the child care provider about making sure there's accessible, safe access to all of the spaces that need to be accessed during walkthroughs, during the work, things like that. Making sure it's clear, and sometimes providers they want contractors to make sure they're wearing booties, and we make sure that different cleaning or we make sure the cleaning protocols are followed to get rid of all of any, the remaining lead or anything like that from interior work. So there's a lot of different ways in which we're centering all that. The other thing is that we know that childcare providers, there are certain times of day that it really does not work for them to have visual inspections or walkthroughs or work happening. So we try, to the extent that we can, we try to make sure that we're working around that. So that might mean that we're just coming by for, we're trying to avoid nap time, lunchtime, things like that, where it might be a little bit more chaotic and doesn't work as well for the childcare providers to have, contractors coming by to scope out the work site. So things like that.
Awesome. I'm just going to pause here to remind people to download the one handout we have. If you haven't already, from the materials section, that is for Lead Care. It has all the Lead Care Cook County. It has all the information there. And just here's my contact information if you need to get in touch with us. Again, we're going to send a link to this presentation, also a survey after this, and the ID to get your CE credits. And I'll just let Corey and Maria have the last word here. If you have anything to add about coordination with child care facilities, um, go right ahead.
Corey?
I can go for you.
Yeah.
I think a big piece is kind of just like leaning on what works best for them and having that flexibility with the contractor, the crew that's going to do it, that they can work with that too. So we make it very clear that the contractor needs to work on the schedule of the daycare, whether it be after hours, weekends, whatever it may be. That is very critical. And again, it kind of goes back to what I was saying, like some of these contractors aren't super familiar with it. And I think everyone's going to get very familiar with it in the coming years, but some of this could be a little bit new to them. And so helping guide them get up to speed and kind of streamline the learning process there, because it is just so customer focused that it's not just tearing up a road. It's very customer focused that they need to be kind of keeping all those things in mind. So a lot of kind of, not necessarily hand holding, but more guidance and kind of help from the city has helped a lot to kind of get these contractors up to speed and to be kind of following the protocols that we're expecting of them as they're going into these daycares.
Awesome. So I guess we'll have to leave it there, even though we have 1,000 more questions to ask. So thanks to all of our audience for joining us. Thank you so much for the presenters. We really appreciate you being here. Look for some follow-up emails from us, and hope to see you here at Cook County TAP the next time. Take care, everybody.